Hi all, this video is going to look specifically at manuscript requirements for submission to a specific journal. So in our last video, we looked specifically at journals within SAGE, and we looked specifically at teacher education and special education, and we've decided that the aim and scope matches our manuscript. So we're ready to look at the submission requirements. So looking at the journal info, we're going to find submission guidelines. And we see that there's a lot of guidelines that are included. So to help us out a little bit, I've just created a slide that helps to kind of generalize things that we're going to be looking at that are specific to submission guidelines. So first and foremost, again, it's really important that when we're looking at manuscript submission guidelines, that we're being very intentional in looking at the details. We do not want to be in a position where our manuscript doesn't get published because we weren't paying close enough attention to a specific guideline. So we're going to focus on the details, details, details. So the first thing that we want to make sure of, again, is looking specifically at the specific type of manuscript. So in our last video, we looked specifically at the aim and scope. So again, with TEAS publishes original quantitative and qualitative research, systematic reviews, comprehensive evaluations, etc. So again, the specific type of manuscript has to match what the specific guideline is. So that's number one. Within the specifics to the manuscript, so within the submission guidelines, you're going to note that there's also information about special issue, but when we get more into the manuscript requirements, the manuscripts submitted are peer-reviewed only if they meet the following criteria. So one of the main points is that it's going to highlight your page length. So specific to the page length, here's our page length when it comes to teacher education and special education. So it's between 25 to 35 double-spaced pages with 1-inch margins. It's looking specifically at including person first language within the manuscript. And then it's also looking at literature that reflects current work, so that they define that as within the last 10 years. So it's important to be able to note that as well. Of course, you want to be able to include clear implications for research and practice, policy if that's relevant to your specific manuscript, and then providing a clear indication that RB approval was obtained. Specific to the manuscript, you'll see that what I noted is a separate cover sheet. So again, this point, separate cover sheet includes the specific information they want to see, including an abstract. And this is a really important one. For tables and figures, you are not going to include your table and figure within the manuscript. So within teacher education and special education, it's looking specifically at a separate document for table and figures. And specifically, figures will only be printed in black and white. In terms of the reference pages, you're including the reference list and references, and you're also including the digital object identifier or DOIs in the reference list. So it's also being very intentional with including a website to help identify those DOIs. Once you have really read these guidelines, you are going to be ready to submit to this journal. So that the next video is going to be focusing specifically on the submission site.